Hi there. My name is Hadiza Saadu. I am the Small Business and Nonprofit Specialist with the Kansas City Public Library. Welcome to another virtual program. Today, we are going to cover a tool that is housed within another tool, and this tool is called the Mission Model Canvas that you can access through the Gale Business Plan Builder. So before we get into it, just want to give a brief description of what the Mission Model Canvas is, what you can expect. The Mission Model Canvas is a tool adapted from another tool called the Lean Canvas, which is intended to break down any business into nine core components. So the Mission Model Canvas, again, is just an adapted version of the Lean Canvas that is applied to nonprofit organizations and grassroots initiatives. Um, or anything that is not primarily focused on earning profit. Anything that is rooted in community, anything that is rooted in a sense of service to a population or the community at large. So we're going to get into it. Uh, how we're going to get into it is by going through the Kansas City Public Library digital catalog to find the Gale Business Plan Builder tool, logging into that tool, and then locating the Mission Model Canvas. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see it. So you should all be seeing the Kansas City Public Library homepage here. And if you have watched any previous videos before, you might already be familiar with the Gale Business Plan Builder. So if you're already familiar with it, you don't need to pay attention to this part, but it's always kind of good to refresh the steps that you need to take to actually access the tools in the digital catalog, just because there is a lot of information on the Kansas City Public Library website, and it can be easy to get lost in the sauce if you don't use it every day. All right, so where are we going? We're going to go to this bar here and focus on the section here called Lifelong Learning. Um, as you can see, we've got enrichment, our specialties, personal development, and local history. We're focused on personal development here, and we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom here, hover our mouse all the way to the bottom here with digital resources A to Z. So again, the tool that we are focused on today is called the Gale Business Plan Builder. Gale is just the name of a business that provides learning tools for people who are interested in pursuing entrepreneurship and also nonprofit formation. So this tool starts with a G. So we're going to go to G for Gale. And you can see here the first two entries are Gale Business Entrepreneurship. I highly recommend this tool if you are wanting examples of business plans and other forms, other tools that help to kind of refine a business idea. And as well as it also includes definitions of common business terms. So if you are kind of confused by jargon, Gale Business Entrepreneurship is the tool for you to get some clarity. But what we're focused on for our time today is the Gale Business Plan Builder, as I've been saying. And so when you click on any entry in the Kansas City Public Library digital catalog, you're going to get access to a landing page like this that gives a little blurb about what the tool is all about, and it will give you the access to the tool itself. So just a refresher for people who are well versed in the use of the digital catalog tools. If you are outside of the library, um, please note that you will need your library card to be able to authenticate and access the tool. If you're inside the library, you don't need to have your library card number available. It will take you directly to the tool. So that's for people who have used tools in the digital catalog as well as people who have never used tools in the digital. No, you're going to need to have your library card information available so that you can authenticate if you are using this outside the library. All right, now I'm going to click on Access Now, and we'll get into the heart of what we're actually focused on today. So when you click on Access Now, it takes you to Gale Business Plan Builder's homepage here, where it asks you to get started. So this is the page where you are going to be prompted to set up an account. The reason why you set up an account with Gale Business Plan Builder is because this is not intended to be kind of like a one and done tool. The intention with this tool is to use it over a stretch of time to help you refine your ideas and even create a business plan and go so far as to create financial projections after your organization is in operation. So this tool, as you can see from the screen, it is for new founders, it is for people who are experienced business owners, and it's for nonprofits. So what we're going to be doing here is using a tool that helps you have more organization for not just the business itself, but for the ideas that go into the business. All right. So I've got an account. I'm able to sign in, and we're about to look at the dashboard here. If it will allow me to sign in, here we go. Okay. So one thing I want to point out for you, I've logged in and my incorporation type here is nonprofit. That's because it was already marked as nonprofit before I logged in. When you log in for the first time, it's going to default to a for-profit business. So if you are using this tool to help organize your ideas for a grassroots slash nonprofit or social enterprise type of initiative, make sure that you have selected your incorporation type as nonprofit. So the assumption here is that you are going to be organizing a 501c3 charitable organization. So on this left-hand side here, we can see 5 different modules here, starting with founder profile, ending with financial projections. I also want to point you to this box here that says Guide Me. This tool will hold your hand if you're stuck. So make use of the tools if you're not sure what to do. So what we're focused on here is the second module here listed underneath founder profile called ideation. I'm gonna click on that, and when I click on that, a drop-down menu appears, which features the mission canvas, as well as more ideation resources here. We're not focused on these today. We're focused on the mission canvas. So clicking on the mission canvas takes me to this module. I want to point out a few things just so that you have your bearings straight. We've got a few questions here that help you kind of orient what it is that you're doing in this particular module. So what is this? What is the mission canvas itself? I mentioned at the beginning of this recording that the mission canvas is adapted from a tool called the Lean Canvas, which is intended for-profit uh, incorporation types, so such as an LLC, a corporation, or even a sole proprietorship. In this case, the mission canvas is an adaptation of that tool. And at the end of the day, what it does is it helps you describe your nonprofit or grassroots initiative in a one-page summary. It is a way to gain clarity for your ideas, not just for you to be able to communicate those ideas to somebody else who might have an interest in supporting it in some way, but it really, first and foremost, allows you to clarify your ideas to yourself first, which is always the first place to be as far as being able to speak with conviction about your ideas. So how does it work? Before I click on this drop down here, I want to point out that when you are using this tool within the Gale Business Plan Builder, it is going to number each of the different sections, each of the different 9 sections that you will spend time with in the tool. And so it's not exactly intuitive in this sense. what you're doing is following the numbers, and try to think of it as you're starting with one, going to two, going to three, going to four, up to nine. And as you complete or put some type of information in um, each section, you are basically building out more or less the strategic framework of your organization because you've spent time thinking through the previous um, aspect of the business. So hopefully that is making sense and landing. But hopefully I can describe this in a more succinct way using the examples shown here. So as you can see, you've got key partners listed as number one, and then you go all the way to the right-hand side with audience. So the idea with this is that you will spend time listing out the key partners for your organization. And after you've spent time focused on that, you will take basically the practice of listing those key partners out to help inform how you are addressing the other component here that comes after, which is the audience. So when you think through the key partners, it kind of lends your thinking towards who are the different audiences that your organization is catering to, or who are the different audiences that would be interested in the work of your organization. Making sense. Okay, so just to go back to these questions up here. We just looked at what is this. Now we're going to look at how does it work. So it breaks this mission model canvas, breaks your organization down into 9 building blocks. And each of these 9 building blocks are going to help you consider how your nonprofit will operate. So again, each of these 9 building blocks is kind of building on the previous one, except for the first one, of course. So the thinking compounds over time. It's not that one particular piece of the mission model canvas is isolated from the other. It's that each piece kind of feeds into the next one. Okay, so why should you do it? When I work with people one-on-one, I'm always framing the mission model canvas or the lean canvas as a tool that is kind of like the business plan or the strategic plan before the actual business plan or strategic plan. This is a tool that really just primes your thinking to be able to kind of hit the ground running when it comes time to actually create the real strategic plan. It is a tool, again, that offers you clarity before you get into the weeds with all of the things. Okay, so why should you do it according to Gail? So the mission model canvas covers at a high level all the major aspects of your nonprofit. It's good to think through all of the major aspects of your nonprofit before you actually have to carry those aspects out. It's very good to put thought and reason behind each of those aspects. Maybe you've thought about the different aspects, whether you've named them the same as they appear here, or you call them something else. Maybe you've started to think about it, or maybe you haven't. Sometimes there are things that come up within the mission model canvas that you have not thought of. So again, just think of this tool as a way to kind of help to orient your thinking before you get into the heavier lifting of coming up with a strategic plan for your nonprofit or grassroots initiative. All right, so where do you start? So technically, you can answer the questions in any order. I know that goes against everything I was just saying and how everything appears here. Um, and what Gale Business Plan Builder is saying is that you'll likely find that you can answer a few questions or a few sections easily, or at least more easily than others. And so what the tool is recommending is that you should start with the things that actually make sense to you. Um, that's one way to do it. I also, again, I do think that going through the way that this is numbered helps to build in that thinking. But again, it is up to you. So we're gonna start with just going through this. We're not going through an actual example. I'm really just kind of narrating to you like a way to think about this tool. This is not the end all be all. I'm not some guru. I've just been using this tool with people for quite some time, and I find that breaking things down using this tool helps people develop quicker. So we're starting with key partners here. When we're talking about a grassroots organization, we want to think about what are the things that are going to help that organization grow. One of the key aspects to running a grassroots organization is to have solid partnerships. So whether you have identified those partnerships or not, the key partners section of the Canvas is your opportunity to identify the types of partners that will actually make sense to work with your organization. So if you know the names of potential partners that you would love to work with, this is where you write those down. If you don't know those names, this could also be the opportunity to research, or it could be the opportunity to kind of, I would say, kind of frame your research as far as identifying those potential partners by identifying the types, just kind of the activities that a partner would do. So everything is strategic, right? You're not just partnering with an organization just to partner with them. You're partnering with an organization because they do something that complements what you do, or you serve the same types of people. Whatever it is, the partners that you're identifying are ones in which that you have something to offer them and they have something to offer you. Please note that when you're using this tool, there are prompts embedded within the tool. So you can click on this box here that says Add Key Partners and get some more prompting to help jog your thinking if you're stuck. So motivations that Gale Business Plan Builder has identified are reach and resource sharing. One of the things that a lot of nonprofits um, are working towards is expanding their reach. And a way to do that is to find um, partners that make sense to join forces with in some way to expand reach. Um, Maybe the idea is that you are kind of thinking about things from kind of a risk averse standpoint, and that's especially true now. Um, Sometimes identifying a key partner is identifying another organization that could potentially help you reduce risk in the operations that you are focused on with your nonprofit. Um, Last but not least, maybe you are identifying key partners so that you can acquire some type of asset that they have, whether it's a resource or it's an existing activity. Um, the sky can be the limit here, but it really is going to be up to what it is that your vision and mission is dictating as far as the formation of your nonprofit or grassroots organization. So that's key partners. Once you've thought through key partners, you've spent a little time with the key partners, then you can start to think, if you want to, you can go this route. You can go all the way to the other side of the canvas and start to think through who is your audience. If you've ever used the lean canvas, number 2 here is actually talking about customers. So when we adapt this to the mission model canvas or the nonprofit version of the lean canvas, when we're thinking about the audience, these are not people that are necessarily uh, seeking the activities of the nonprofit itself. These are people that are interested in the mission and the activities of the organization, whether they are the direct beneficiaries of the activities or they're in the space where they support those types of activities. So there's a lot to think about with audience here. Of course, maybe maybe not, of course, but a way to kind of orient your thinking with audience is to start with who are going to be the beneficiaries, who are the people that you're serving as a grassroots organization. So start by describing those people and then expand outward. So maybe you are uh, forming a grassroots organization to put on some type of after school programming that is focused on um, junior high, junior high school age. Um, at that point, then you could describe your primary audience as junior high school age kids who need something to do after school, and then expand from there. Okay, I won't spend too much more time with that. We'll move on to value proposition. So this can be dicey and tricky to think about if you're not super clear on what value is. So when we're talking in the context of a nonprofit or grassroots organization, you can think of value similarly as you can when it comes to a for-profit type of organization. And in this case, um, I'm always framing this with people as trying to think through things through the shoes of somebody who is coming to your doorstep as a nonprofit or who is the primary beneficiary that you're trying to reach. So whatever it is that you're doing as a nonprofit or grassroots initiative, thinking through the experience of the primary beneficiary, the person whom the programs that you run are intended for. When you're thinking through that person's journey, start with what was that person's life like before they ever heard about your nonprofit? What happened when they heard about your nonprofit for the first time? What happened when they received services through your nonprofit, through some type of programming? And for the duration of their time with your program, what changed? Um, so basically, what you're trying to think through in a hypothetical way is the change in the quality of life of somebody. Maybe they, through um, working with your nonprofit, maybe they have accessed a resource that they did not have access to before even knowing about your nonprofit. So what does that do? Maybe what they've accessed is something that makes it a lot more affordable to grocery shop, to cover basic needs. What has changed in their life? That's the value. So it's not just thinking about money. That can be the first thing that drives your thinking with that. What you're really trying to capture with the value proposition, because you want to know what value you as a nonprofit in a space where there's so many nonprofits and grassroots organizations that tackle similar issues. What is it about your nonprofit that delivers value? What type of value are you delivering? What are you doing to intervene in somebody's life that makes their life better? All right. After you've gone through the value proposition, and I know that sometimes that framing can be difficult to grasp. So, you don't have to do everything at once, but after you've gone through kind of articulating what is your value proposition, then you're going to start to think about competition. And this is a very interesting, just an interesting topic and interesting aspect to deal with when we're talking about nonprofits. So yeah, when you're doing a nonprofit organization, no, you're not necessarily competing for profit. In fact, you shouldn't be competing for profit. But you are competing. You're in a competitive space. Most often, you are competing for funding. So you're competing against other nonprofits to get funding. That's kind of just like the nature of how it works. So viewing it as competition helps you kind of identify any weaknesses that you might have. And you want to know what those weaknesses are so that you can work on them to turn them into opportunities or strengths. When we're thinking about competition, I've just named funding. Another huge piece of competition is we're just in a digital era right now. And so a huge thing that anybody is competing for online is people's attention. So we've got two, I guess you could call them forces. We've got the force of funding and then the force of attention. And you are, as a grassroots nonprofit organization, always having to take into consideration your edge when it comes to being able to successfully secure funding and being able to successfully capture the attention of people who could support your organization. So there's a lot that comes out with that. And we're not going to get into that today, but one of the things that I'm thinking about that I just kind of want to put out there is um, when it's competing for funding, when you're going up to write a grant to hopefully get support, financial support from a funding organization, you are um, there are other nonprofits that are seeking that same funding. So you are de facto in competition with them. But again, the competition is for the funding. So at the end of the day, you are trying to put your best foot forward as the nonprofit organization without necessarily thinking too much about the other nonprofits to then um, hopefully get that funding from the funding organization. When it comes to attention, um, that attention online can convert into dollars, into grassroots support. So if you have started to put thought towards a digital campaign to get engagement, to get eyes on your initiative, you might also want to think about how that type of attention, how you can hold that attention to then potentially convert into people donating to your organization through crowdfunding. So those are just two things to think about with competition. There are going to be some more things to think about once you peel back the layers. But when you start with those two things, I find that the thinking can really be directed to help you start to even think through an engagement strategy, which is going to be important for any nonprofit that is starting up now or any nonprofit that exists that feels that they need to pivot in a certain direction. All right, next we're going to outreach. What is outreach? Outreach just has to do with how does word get out about your organization. I find that the strongest mode of outreach is going to be word of mouth, and that's coming from relationships that you've established and the work that you do speaking for itself. So, bottom line, you always just want to be doing a really good job with what it is that you stated is your mission. Beyond word of mouth, which can be a very powerful, I'm not going to say the most, but it can be a very powerful mode of outreach and getting people to support your organization. Beyond outreach, or beyond word of mouth, you can identify different outlets that help to amplify reach. So those could be local radio stations, news outlets, printed news outlets, and more. But you're thinking about ways to expand reach when we're talking about outreach here. Okay, next we're talking about mission achievement and mission budget. So if you've used the lean canvas or when you're using the lean canvas, which we're not doing today, we're doing the mission model canvas. When you see these two sections here, 6 and 7, what you're seeing is revenue structure and cost structure. So the nonprofit version of this are mission achievement and mission budget. So what these two sections are really kind of asking you to consider, starting with mission achievement, is how much does your mission cost with the mission budget? Sorry, I skipped to mission budget. And how do you know if your activities are actually contributing to the success of your mission? So it can be a little bit nebulous here. But the reality is when we're talking about nonprofits, we're not talking about numbers, right? So we're not talking about how are you earning revenue. Um, Mission achievement can look like number of people that you serve in a certain period of time. It can look like positive testimony or positive feedback that is shared with your organization that you can then share out to the public. Um, Really, what mission achievement is, it's just like it kind of says, it's the factors that are kind of uh, telling you that you are actually working towards the mission that you've stated. Then mission budget. Every mission has to have a budget. You have to spend time thinking through the major expenses that you're going to incur while putting on the programs that work towards your mission. So this is pretty straightforward. It's really just knowing what those expenses are. Okay, now we're getting to key resources here. So key resources, they can kind of overlap with key partners. They can also overlap a bit with key activities. Um, but one of the biggest resources that you're going to have access to is funding. The other is time. So everybody's working with some level of money and time. Maybe that money is zero or negative, but you're working with the idea of money and you're definitely working with time. Other resources that you definitely need to consider are skill sets. Who on your team has what skills that you can easily leverage without having to go and find someone? This would mean that you've already spent time determining who your board is. But if you don't know what those specific skill sets or who's going to have those specific skill sets, you at least want to know what those skill sets are that will help you carry out your mission. So at the very least, whether you have already established a board or you don't know who your board is going to be, much like key partners with key resources, you are at the very bare minimum identifying the things that you need to have to be able to operate your program or programs with your nonprofit or grassroots organization. Okay, now we are finally at the last bit here, and that's called key activities. So you'll notice that we've spent all this time thinking about who's going to be the key partners or what qualities does a key partner need to have, who is the audience, what value are we delivering to people who come through our doors or experience anything that has to do with our programming. Um, what is what is the competition? What does that actually mean when we're talking about nonprofit work? And going up for funding, and also competing for attention. Um, what is outreach like? What are our channels that we can leverage for outreach? How do we know that we are achieving our mission? And what is it going to cost to achieve that mission? And what are the resources that we need to leverage to be able to be in a position of success to carry out our mission? We go through all of those, each of those 8 components to get to the last component, key activities. You'd think that maybe you'd start with this, right? Because oftentimes when you want to form a nonprofit, you know what type of problem that you want to address. This may be shocking, um, but a lot of times people spend more time thinking about this is a problem that needs to be solved before getting into what exactly are we doing to solve that problem. So after you've spent time in each of these 8 sections and you get to key activities, this is your opportunity to get very detailed about what it is that you are doing. So those key activities are going to be those activities that are essential to carrying out your mission, if whether you've stated that mission or not. And this gets me to another point that maybe I should have led with this. But what this tool does, Mission Model Canvas, and I've mentioned this already, it is a tool that clarifies each of the 9 components that you need to think about to be able to come up with a successful strategic plan for your nonprofit. Um, so as a clarifying tool, what it does is it either helps you formulate a mission statement if you have not created one already, or it helps refine a mission statement that you might have already written down. Because what you can do is if you already have a mission statement written down, you can kind of go cross-check the language in your mission statement to see how your answers to each of these 9 sections here match up to that. And if something's kind of off, going back to what you've put in for your mission model canvas can help you further refine a mission statement so that it is action oriented and actually identifying a goal. So with all of that said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I am looking at my Teams recording, and I am hoping that everything got recorded correctly because I see that my face is frozen. So hopefully this one will work. If it doesn't, I'm gonna have to record another one. But I want to thank you all for your time. If you've decided to come when this is posted or later, thank you so much for spending some time with me today, looking through the mission model canvas located in the Gale Business Plan Builder.